Welcome in. It is week 10. I cannot believe we are here. Some crazy games happened. Some really surprising things happened. And yet here we are. And for those who don't care, but I do, it's the first day of college basketball. So I'm super excited about that. And can't tell, I got my Shocker stuff on. They're playing tonight. And so I'm here with you guys, though, which is more important. And even better, I have Mike joining me. How's it going, Mike?
Good. Yeah, like you said, we're already week 10. So what do we have? About 5 weeks for most leagues, I think, of regular season fantasy football. So it's kind of crunch time, You got to make the playoffs. You got to find that right waiver wire to kind of get you a win this week. So yeah, it's going by so fast, though, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's just absolutely crazy and not surprising because that's just how this year has been. I mean, all the games are just absolutely insane. I mean, tonight's going to be another one that I'm curious to see how it ends up because you really don't know. I mean, the players that are out are weird. You're not used to seeing it. I just saw that they put Bateman on IR, which is another means he's out at least 4 weeks, if not the rest of the season. But it's just crazy.
Yeah, it's guys are just dropping, left and right. So it's kind of how it goes when you get to, we're halfway through the football regular season. So yeah, it gets tough for sure.
Yeah, but we'll get off of that. We'll leave that alone. Week 9's in the past. Here's to week 10. Well, it will be after tonight anyway. Nobody's really going to watch that game. So, sorry, that's probably not fair. I shouldn't say that. People will watch it. You can hope. I mean, you'll never know.
These are the type of games where it's, two okay teams or good teams. I don't know, but two teams and you're maybe not excited, and then they have a great game. So.
And Soaring Eagle starting us off, benching Herbert for either Tua or Fields. Is this a good move? Yes. Fields has great matchups until his bye week, and then it goes downhill very quickly for your fantasy playoffs. So of those, I'd much prefer Tua. And the big issue with Herbert is just the fact that he doesn't have anybody to throw to. It's rough out there for him. He's just trying to survive and somehow is pulling out wins. And I almost thought we were going to be tied for first in our division. Holy cow.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, well, if the Chiefs lose, Chargers and Chiefs have the same record. It doesn't feel that way. But yeah, I think that's a great move, Soaring Eagle. And the fact that you have all three of them is kind of amazing. But yeah, Fields, I'd go with Fields just because, like you said, his matchups are great, especially I think he has Falcons-Lions the next couple of weeks, if I'm right there. I know he has two really good matchups. So you got to bench Herbert now until at least Mike Williams or Keenan Allen are kind of back full strength, if not both of them. So,
yeah, and who actually knows when that's going to happen? I was hoping. I mean, he re-aggravated it, but you brought it up. I mean, I have Fields as one of my streaming QBs because 47.4% rostered, gets the Dolphin or had the Dolphins this past week. It was QB1. I mean. Insane. 42.72 fantasy points. I mean, and he's QB1 over the past 5 weeks, which is even more insane. He's rushing at least 7 times a game. And it's really, he's seemingly, if he can start hitting some of the key throws, he's going to be just a great player for you guys. I mean, let's see. Since week 5, 17.02 fantasy point. Week 6, 18.4. Week 7 versus the Patriots, 23.36. Week 8, Cowboys, 26. And then, of course, this past week, 42, almost 43 fantasy points. That's just absolutely bananas to see. And I mean, we didn't even touch on it, but the bye weeks, Bengals, Patriots, Jets, Ravens, which means you're probably missing of those, Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson are the two that you're sitting.
Yeah.
Of course, Bonham's coming off the top ropes at the regular season. Single game rushing record. Yeah. For a QB, that's a pretty impressive stat for you. But again, it's going to be fun, and I think he's a good one to go with, as well as a guy who's a little more available because everybody dropped him this past week, went on bye. Jimmy Garoppolo, 18.4% rostered. Like I said, coming off the bye, great rest of the season schedule. Literally one of the best. You can probably play him from here on out this week. I'm a little more nervous about him because I think CMC is really going to tear up the Chargers, which will limit his usage. But if they're passing to him, it's still going to be pretty viable. But weeks 5 through 8, he's QB8 on the year, averaging 18 fantasy points a game. So, and like I said, he goes against the Chargers, which isn't a tough matchup, unfortunately. I wish we could get healthy and actually compete in this one. But outside of that, Mike, you got anybody you want to throw out there?
Yeah, I mean, Fields is definitely my number one. We've kind of been on Fields for the last few weeks now. So the fact that he's still under 50% rostered, that's definitely going to change after this week. He's not going to be. You're not going to find him if he's still available in your leagues. You got to spend all your fab, or, a lot of your fab or your waiver wire priority. If you need a quarterback, you got to get him for sure. So he's my number one.
Yeah, your really good move here is to pivot into him into a trade after this week and be like, look, he's producing. Take him. That way, when it's the playoffs and you're going against this person, they're absolutely just destroyed. So,
yeah, he does have a rough playoff schedule, so be careful. Maybe if you do have, a Herbert like Soaring Eagle, maybe to hold on to Herbert, just in case for that playoffs, because it is tough for Fields. But the next several weeks here, you're looking gold. So, but yeah, if Fields is gone in your league, which I think a lot of competitive leagues he will be gone. Daniel Jones is maybe out there. He was on a bye, so maybe he was dropped, and he was QB9 in fantasy heading into week 9. Obviously, he had a bye week, so he fell down the rankings, but he was third in rushing yards for quarterbacks heading into week 9. So he has a pretty good rushing floor, which, basically means he's only had one single digit week because of that rushing floor. He's had 220 plus point performances. So that's really good. And he plays Houston, which actually isn't that great for quarterbacks because I think everyone just runs all over him. So maybe that's good for his rushing floor. And then Detroit in 2 weeks. So if you need someone for the next couple weeks, Daniel Jones might be your guy.
Yeah, that was definitely a name that I was interested in, but I can't take all the good ones, So
yeah, you got to leave some for me. And then Deshaun Watson. What do we think about Deshaun Watson?
I mean, right now is when you're definitely wanting to pick him up. I mean, and I mean that I like the option. I'm curious to see. I'm more nervous. I want to see him his first week back and kind of see how he acclimates. But QB5 every year that he is actually active. I mean, it's tough to beat that. And so if you're looking for a playoff stash, anything along those rounds, it's definitely time to be looking at him as an option for sure.
Yeah, because he comes back. This is his last week of suspension, and he's back week 11. So, might be if you really, really need someone, especially in deep leagues. Yeah, definitely pick him up and see what he does.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll get out of quarterback. We've spent enough time on that. We'll move into running back, and I mean, he was just traded. It's Jeff Wilson for me, 44.6% rostered. Everybody dropped him because CMC came to town, and now he's in another split backfield. I mean, with an offense sitting nose because Mike McDaniel, as we all know, was a 49ers coach and went to the Dolphins. This year, he's RB22. I mean, averaging 10.6 fantasy points, traded from the 49ers to the Dolphins. Week 9, his first week with the Dolphins, 9 carries, 51 yards, 3 catches, 21 yards, and a touchdown for 16.2 fantasy points. Man, that's juicy. And guess what? He gets the Browns this week. Oh man, they're in a world of hurt.
I kind of expected him to cut into Mostert's production a little bit, but not his first week on the team. So, crazy.
Oh no, Steve again. Wilson outsnapped Mostert in his first game here. That was a big, but we're not super surprised. Again, he knows the offense already. He's right. Both. I think this is going to be a 1-2 punch that you're probably going to be able to play both of them because this offense is just explosive. And once they start getting their defense together, they're going to be able to run and try and keep both these backs healthy because Mike McDaniel knows how everybody gets hurt. That's part of the reason he brought Jeff in.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. So that offense is ridiculous as well. So a lot of opportunities to score, and they do spread the ball around. I think Tyreek Hill scored a touchdown this week, and it was his first touchdown since week 2. So it's not like they just funnel it to. In terms of the touchdowns to Hill and Waddle. So,
well, I mean, realistically, you're either having a wide receiver do a touchdown and a running back each week score a touchdown. And that's kind of what it's been. I mean, usually Waddle's the one sneaking in there, but it's been a pretty impressive feat for that Dolphins team. And they're looking pretty scary. I mean, they even added a good defense piece in a Chubb this week. So it's going to be interesting to see how that ends up going, but we'll leave him alone. What RBs are you looking at?
Yeah, another one, Gus Edwards is right around 40% rostered, and when he comes back from injury, I know he's out tonight, but when he comes back from injury, he's potentially an RB1. It's obviously going to be a timeshare type of situation, and Lamar runs the ball that much, but in terms of when it comes to the waiver wire, it's hard to find guys that have the potential to be the RB1 for their team. So Gus Edwards, he was a top 10 running back his one healthy week this year. I don't really see a lot of competition for him, with Dobbins still out when he does come back. So, and the Ravens have a really nice looking kind of ahead to the future, which for those of you who are, 8-1 or 7-2 in your leagues, the Ravens have a really good playoff schedule for running backs. They play the Browns, Falcons, and Steelers weeks 15 through 17, which is really, really nice for running backs. So that's definitely someone I'm looking at. What do you think about Gus Edwards? How you feeling?
My issue is just the fact that they're going into a bye. So
yeah,
I'm assuming that he's probably not going to be picked up this week. If you're one to grab somebody Sunday morning and hold him because you have cycled through everybody, I think that'd be a good way of doing that. But I like Gus Edwards overall. I think, like you said, he does have a great matchup coming up, and it'll be interesting. That whole team is very confusing to me, especially they're going to have to run the ball. They don't have anybody to throw to, it seems. So tonight's game is going to be interesting to kind of get the barometer of where everybody's going to be and who's going to be used and who's not. So
yeah, definitely more of a long-term play. But then other than that, I always kind of touch on these kind of high-level handcuffs. Jaylen Warren with behind Najee for the Steelers, and who knows if something kind of happens to Najee, who I don't know if he's fully healthy anyways, but if something else happens, they might just shut him down, like kind of how the Lions did with Swift last year, just saying, we're not
kind of doing it this year too.
Yeah, kind of doing it this year where it's like, we're not in it. We're not going to risk one of our better players. So maybe Jaylen Warren gets it. They want to see what they have. Isaiah Spiller for the Chargers, first time all year where he was the RB2, kind of what we expected when he was drafted. Hasn't played out that way, but he is the RB2, or was this last week. Eckler's touching the ball 20 plus times a game, and that's a little scary for someone like him.
Yeah, but it's definitely Spiller over Michelle finally, which I has taken long enough. I'm glad that that's definitely a case. But again, it's just one of those things that you want to make sure that you're looking at. I agree. And like Steve said, they are working Warren in. He's been somebody that you've seen his snap percentage go up each week. It's definitely something that I'm excited for. I like him more of the two because, again, I'm not sure when Joshua Kelly comes back, but that is something I'm definitely more worried about, is because Kelly was clearly the number 2. And so that would thankfully knock Michelle off the field, which I'm all for.
Yeah. So, those guys, and especially again, if you're looking good for the playoffs this week, next week it's kind of the time to start to consolidate your roster a little bit. I think where, if you have Eckler, it's probably a good idea to get Spiller on your team, or if you have Najee and you're somehow making the playoffs, get Jaylen Warren on your team, and Rachaad White is another one with Fournette. So yeah, this is a good point too. Always off the bye, you got to watch those off the bye type of situations with the rookies.
Yeah, and I mean, it's definitely something that you need to look at for sure, just because, I mean, more importantly, once they get past their bye, you want to start making sure that you have the handcuffs for your running backs, because if they go down, a lot of them are going to go straight into that role. Like you brought up Spiller. If Eckler does go down right now and Kelly's on IR, Spiller's going to be that guy up. And so,
yeah, they're not going to bring in someone in week 15, most likely. And so I agree. Just protect yourself, and because it's, other than that, there's, besides Gus Edwards and Jeff Wilson, there's not too much on the waiver wire this week, I'd say, for running backs.
Yeah, but that's not super surprising. I mean, running backs are always pretty tough, and thankfully this isn't a week that's absolutely going to kill you at running back, because, I mean, unless you were hoping Carter was going to be your workhorse, or I guess Joe Mixon's probably the big one, or Ramondre Stevenson. I mean, they have been stepping up the workload. So, but we'll get out of running back. We'll move into wide receivers. And of course, it's Mecole Hardman, which I never thought I would say, 36.1% rostered, but weeks 5 through 9, that includes his bye, wide receiver 11. Like he saw his most targets this week at 9. Week 5 versus Raiders, 12 fantasy points. Week 6 versus the Bills, 13.2. Week 7 versus the 49ers, 28. And that's a game where he scored every touchdown possible. And then this past week, week 9, 19.9 fantasy points. He is becoming that guy that they're kind of going to in tough situations. And I mean, him and Juju, if you don't have them, I feel like those two are definitely must rosters at this point because they are seeing enough targets be valuable, at least a flex every week. And you kind of brought it up, but off the bye, people that you're looking at, and the fact that we touched on it with Deshaun Watson, Donovan People-Jones, 12.6% rostered. Talked about it before this week. Had a double-digit fantasy points, 5 of 8 weeks this year. Just coming off a bye, going to against Miami, who gave up a pretty good game against Darnell Mooney. I mean, if that's going to be the role that we see from DBJ, getting those deep shots, week 6 versus the Pats, 11.6 fantasy points. Week 7 versus Raiders, 11.1. Week 8 versus the Bengals, 12.1. Those are all solid flex plays for you guys. And I don't see that ever changing because he is just an explosive play away, and we're not even sure. They're saying that Njoku's going to play, so that might limit his target share. But even then, it's him, Cooper, and Njoku doing all the work, and then Chubb just running it at people. So I'm super excited for him, and I think he's a great talent. But we'll let you get your picks in here and see what we like here.
Yeah, and just a real quick note on both of those guys. Hardman, if you're gonna pick a flex receiver, get one on a good offense, and the Chiefs get creative around the goal line, and they don't just funnel it to Kelsey or something around the goal line. They kind of spread the wealth a bit, and so yeah, Hardman's a good choice, and Donovan People-Jones, again, a lot of people probably dropped him because all the buys we had last week, but with Deshaun Watson coming back, we don't know what this offense is going to look like. It could be a really good offense. So there's going to be plenty of the ball to go around if with Watson coming back for sure. So I like those two. Another one that we maybe should have mentioned last week, especially as two Chargers fans, is Josh Palmer for the Chargers. With Keenan Allen, who knows when he's going to be back. Mike Williams is definitely going to be out another few weeks. So we saw what Palmer can do. He has 22 targets the last 2 weeks, and then last week he had 8 for 106 versus the Falcons, which is one of the worst teams against receivers. But that team's going to throw the ball. They're going to throw the ball. They're going to throw the ball, and they have a really good quarterback. So he's just by default, it seems like he's going to get 60, 70 yards. It feels like as long as Keenan Allen and Mike Williams are out.
Yeah, and I mean, we should have, but again, at that time, everybody seemed to have him, and I think only people might have dropped him this past week because they were kind of, off a bye, Allen's going to be back, so maybe that's what happened. I'm not quite sure why people would have dropped him, but last time I saw he was at 55%,
okay.
So I'm glad that if he's that available, you make sure to get him on your team because he's definitely going to see targets, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And then more deeper leagues, Terrace Marshall has looked good the last 2 weeks. Wide receiver 20. Kind of treat him as a rookie a little bit. I know he was a rookie last year, but lots of injuries, and so he seems to be coming on. I don't think he's going to get benched. He's going to be kind of the wide receiver 2 in that offense. Plays the Falcons this week, which we just talked about with Palmer. Has kind of been fantasy gold for receivers. So then I think, the 2 weeks. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
his big game was actually against him 2 weeks ago. So it's another back-to-back chance for him to really show up and be a good play. I mean, I completely agree. I like that as an option, especially in deeper leagues. But and of course, guy playing tonight, Devin Duvernay. I mean, with all the other news, he's another one to keep an eye on. And I guess that'll kind of move us into tight end because guess what? Mark Andrews is out. So Isaiah Likely was widely available coming into the weekend. I'm not sure. I'm assuming that he's picked up in enough leagues, but who knows? If he's available in your league, that would be a good option. But again, they're going on bye. So who actually knows if Andrews is going to be healthy after that? But coming off of bye, the guy that we loved beforehand, we brought him up again. Greg Dulcich, 28.9% rostered, like way too available, guys. Coming off the bye, week 6 for the Chargers, went 2 for 3, 44 yards, a touchdown, 12.4 fantasy points. Week 7 versus the Jets, 6 of 9, 51 yards, 11.1 fantasy points. And week 8 versus the Jaguars, 4 of 5, 87 yards, 12.7 fantasy points. This is something that you're looking for. If it's available, you definitely like this as an option. And he's still, I understand people dropped him because it was the bye week. Completely understand that. Tight end's tough, so but you have to keep an eye on it, and just the fact that he was dropped still blows my mind. But do you have some better options than that, or you got somebody that you prefer?
Yeah, no, I think Dulcich is my number one, but just a couple other guys to throw out there. Kate Otten has been tight end 8 the last 3 weeks, 5+ targets each of the last 3 weeks. 60+ yards in 2 of the last 3 weeks. Had a touchdown last week. So again, kind of treat him. He is a rookie. Treat him like any other rookie. Take some time to learn the position, tight end, even more so. So, but keep an eye on Cameron Brate because if he comes back,
Yeah,
that's
that is definitely an issue. But Soaring Eagle brought up, are we keeping Aaron Jones, or is it time to trade him with how little Green Bay runs football? Well, I think the actual issue is just the fact that they are splitting the carries too much. The week that Jones had was when he actually saw a majority of the carries, and so, I mean, it really depends on what you can get, what your team looks like. Again, this is a good reason to join the Discord, right, Mike? I mean,
Yeah.
we will gladly help you work through all this. That's something that, I mean, if you given the option, I would prefer to try and move him, but it's going to be tough now that they've seen how fickle that team can be.
Yeah, kind of trading him at his lowest. So it's weird because when the Bills game, I think Aaron Rodgers came out and said like, "Oh, looked better. We got the ball into Aaron Jones's hand," and then they decided to not give the ball to Aaron Jones this week, and it's so confusing and
especially in the matchup. Like I was just
yeah,
expecting to be able to
yeah,
dink and dunk all over the place, but Brady
yeah.
Bragg coming in, Nerd and Mike, would you all flex Khalil Herbert versus the Lions or Jeff Wilson versus the Browns? I'm assuming that's Herbert. So
Cleo
I'm
Herbert, yeah.
I'm
I'd go Jeff Wilson.
I agree. Just the fact that offense is going to be impossible to stop, and I think they can easily get up and just run it down the Browns' throat because that is definitely a clear weakness of the Browns. So I'm all for doing that for sure.
Yeah.
I much prefer the Wilson this week for sure. But
Yeah, and it's a little concerning. I mean, Herbert's snap percentage has gone down over the last 2 weeks since what it was, in weeks 6 and 7. So I think he only had 7 carries. He doesn't catch the ball at all. It still seems to be Montgomery's backfield, and Herbert's more of a kind of spelling him a bit, but it's not the 50-50 split that I think a lot of people thought was going to start happening. So yeah, I'm all in on Jeff Wilson versus the Browns this week. Good matchup, good offense. We saw what he did, so definitely.
yeah, and yeah. Anyways, we'll get back to tight end. You have another one that you're interested in, or
Yeah, just again, more of a deeper league. Dulcich is my number one, but Cole Kmet had his best game of the year, and he was kind of a lot of people's sleeper tight ends, or kind of that late round tight end that if you wanted to wait to potentially get, and hopefully he's going to produce. So I'm always interested when those guys finally start to produce. The Bears' offense has obviously improved a lot over the last few weeks. Maybe Cole Kmet's a part of that. And he has 2 really good matchups against the Lions, who are 29th against tight ends, Falcons, who are 27th in the next 2 weeks. So we could just see a couple good games from Cole Kmet. It's tough to trust anyone necessarily in the Bears passing game besides Fields, but we'll see. If you're super desperate, I don't think Kmet is a terrible option.
yeah, I'm like. My big worry is just the fact that I think his targets are going to end up being funneled to Claypool when he learns the offense. That's my big worry, just because he does have that talent and they are kind of similar builds in that situation. So, but I agree. It definitely looked good looking into because I think he was a tight end 3 this week.
Yeah, tight end 3 or 2, depending on the format, I think. Yeah.
So, but it's hard when Goddard puts up those big numbers, and then somebody else popped off this week TJ Hawkinson, duh.
Yeah.
My big miss of the week. Sorry, kind of frustrated on that one. But yeah, I think he's definitely good looking into if he's one of the ones that are available. I'd still think I'd go Otten unless Brate's back first, but we've been talking about Otten for weeks now. It feels like, and he's just they have to throw the football, and hopefully Brady is undefeated since coming out of his divorce, so hopefully he can keep this rolling. But it's definitely interesting to see how that ends up working out. But Don't get defensive, but we are. We're definitely going to look at defenses here. And I'm starting with the team that I was just shocked by this past week, and the Titans. They've actually looked pretty solid the past few weeks, and even against the Chiefs, 15.9% rostered. They play the Broncos this week. Granted, the Broncos are coming off bye. It makes me a little nervous, but currently 11th best defense on the year. I mean, they are tied for that, but after the bye, past 3 weeks, second best since their bye week. Week 7 versus Colts, 20 points. Week 8 versus Texas, 11 points. This past week against the Chiefs, they didn't even go native. They actually put up a point. Just is mind-blowing to me. They're too widely available, and if they could put up a point against the Chiefs, I would say that they're probably around 8 this week against the Broncos. So, you have somebody you're interested in, Mike?
Yeah, I have a few. Give the people some options. The Jets, they were probably dropped a lot this week because they played the Bills, and ironically, the Jets were the 3rd best defense this week, even though they did play the Bills. So it kind of backfired on. I think all of us kind of expected that of maybe don't play the Jets this week, and they're the 5th best defense on the year. They're just a good defense. So they play the Patriots this week, which isn't definitely not an offense to be afraid of. So I really, really like the Jets if they were dropped in your leagues, which again, a lot of them were. A lot of people did drop them. So another team, and it's the Raiders. I know it sounds crazy, but they're playing the Colts.
Love it.
Yeah,
Jets are on bye. That's what I was double checking, Steve. So not this week, but the week after they're playing the Patriots.
Oh yeah, good point. Very good point. So yeah, that's more again not for this week, but if you can hold 2 defenses, I don't necessarily recommend it, but
a Sunday morning grab.
Yeah, exactly. So then not the Jets for this week, but the Raiders because they're playing the Colts, and they have Sam Ellinger and as the starting quarterback. If he is, who knows what direction that team's going. But
and even now, I mean, that's the big question: is Frank Wright's out?
Mm-hmm.
They brought in Jeff Saturday, who is a center, Pro Bowl excellent commentator, but man, his only coaching experience is with a high school team, and he went 3-7 to end his year last in 2020. So the last time he coached as a head coach, he was 3-7 for his final games, and that's not what you're looking for a head coach. But maybe some morale boost. Maybe that's what they're looking for, and or somebody that will just listen. I really have no idea what's going on there. So I really like this pick. That was somebody I was definitely looking at, but there is definitely a risk because the Raiders are not a great defense.
No, they're not. They're a tough defense, but the Colts have allowed the most fantasy points to defenses since week 6. Part of that's definitely the Ellinger experiment. So if he's still there, I'd look at them. And another one is the Cardinals, who are actually the 7th best defense on the league in the league this year, fantasy wise, and they play the Rams. So,
Steve,
yeah, right, it's amazing.
From 3-7 in high school to an NFL coach, I need that agent. I agree, Steve. We need better agents for sure because we need better jobs.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's just mind blowing that he was able to pull that off, and good for him. I mean, I think it's just his maybe knowledge of the team, and like I said, I really think it's more of a morale boost than anything else. But yeah, sorry to interrupt, but Steve's showing me that. I was just like, that's very true. I definitely need a better agent.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, Cardinals playing the Rams, and the Rams are actually the team that this kind of surprised me, but the team that gives up the most fantasy points to defenses this year. So that's not something we expected, definitely with the Rams and Stafford and Cooper Kupp, but it's true, the amount of sacks and interceptions they give up. So, Cardinals might be a solid play, and they're fantasy wise, not a bad defense, I guess. If they're the 7th best defense.
Yeah, it's just mind blowing how fast that Rams defense Rams team has just like imploded on itself.
Yeah,
I don't know what the cause is completely, but man, it's they have to get something. I mean, maybe it's just the losses of the deep ball. It's just mind blowing to me to see that that's a case, and so yeah, those are definitely good options. But outside of that, I mean, I think that we've covered it all. I'm ready to watch this game. Actually, I'm not. I'm going to watch the Shocker game, and then I will go and watch this game. But outside of that, Mike, you have anything you want to plug? Your beautiful article's out tomorrow, right?
Yes, trade article as always. I'm sure a lot of trade deadlines are coming up, so time to make your move. Either save your season or solidify yourself as a as a championship contender. Whatever it is, even if you're in first place, you can still most likely improve your team. So that's
buying Swift cheap. I mean,
yeah.
Right now everybody's trying to sell him. I guarantee it that they think that he is done, and it might be something you look into for sure, because that's one of my ones that I'm looking at.
Yeah, he's in my article this week. Is
DeAndre
Swift.
That one. Let's go.
Yeah, buy low. It's you don't want to necessarily give up. I was explaining this in the Discord, which is where you all should join us. But maybe don't give up players that you need that are vital to your team. But if you can buy low and some auxiliary pieces and ancillary pieces, you can get Swift on your team. He could be that last piece during the fantasy playoffs that kind of pushes your team over the top. So, yeah, join us in the Discord, read the article, Twitter at Michael Berland, and yeah, that's all I have to plug.
Well, perfect. And if you haven't already, make sure you hit up the store. I mean, shop.importantnonsense.com, promo code NERD. Get yourself some merch. I'm super excited about it. I am waiting for my cup to come in because that's what I want so bad. My Roster of the People cup that I will be drinking out of probably the rest of the year, except for the days that the Shockers play, because I will have my lovely little Shocker cup that I will continue to drink out of. But outside of that, I'm super excited. I hope you all really enjoyed this. I hope we were able to help. It's week 10, y'all. I hope you're ready. Come back to see us on Thursday. Outside of that, man, remember, keep up the nonsense.